Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Grid Live Wrap-Up. I'm Ben Schneider alongside Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish and Adam Lemerise. We wrapped up Formula E early this morning, so NASCAR is the only grid ranking series we have to recap tonight. So to fill some time, we also have Joshua Birch with us to discuss a little bit of the British Touring Car Championship. So we're looking forward to that. And as always, we want to give a special shout out to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Deshelle, and Robin. Thank you so much for investing in Grid Network. Your support helps keep us on the air throughout 2022 and continuing to do what we love. 2 races remain before the NASCAR playoffs begin, and while the chances of getting to 16 or more winners dropped a little bit today, there is still time for the rest of the field to make that happen. But before we talk about that, we'll start with you, Joshua, a recap of the British Touring Car Championship weekend.
Thanks, Ben. And I think we'll call this a bit Birch's Bible. It's going to be a little bit of a ramble, a bit like Ted's notebook as well. We don't often get a chance to talk about the British Touring Car Championship because it's very regional as well. We talk about more open world championships as well and the bigger series as well. So with some space on the programme tonight, we thought we'd give it a quick go. Let's start off then with some of the big events. This is the 7th weekend of the British Touring Car Championship coming into it as well. We've already had the previous 6 as well and the summer break. So we're now into the tail end of the season. 7, 8, 9 and 10 races remain. So there's 3 races across each weekend. Rounds 19, 20 and 21 took place at Snetterton, a track very close to my heart as I was there last year as well, and even picked up, this got sent to me as well, for the British Touring Car Championship, an advert for this weekend's race. I forgot to show this on here on my watch along, so I thought we'll have it here as well for the review segment. Snetterton's a wonderful circuit, full of greenery all the way around, but this weekend as well, with the heat wave that has devastated many parts of the countryside of the United Kingdom as well, Snetterton looked more like a circuit in the depths of heat wave in Spain as well. The green grass was turned into brown dust as well, more akin to racing in Bahrain in the desert as well. In round 19 as well, it was Colin Turkington who took a fantastic pole position on Saturday as well, literally just a second over Jake Hill. Now, during that qualifying segment as well on Saturday, they were separated by about 69 thousandths. It was a last lap dash for Turkington, who celebrates his 500th touring car race this weekend as well. He led from pole position. He led every single lap. Checkered flag was at the end as well with the fastest lap. And the way the point system works as well is you get 20 points for winning a race. You get 1 point for taking pole position. You get 1 point for the fastest lap. And you get 1 point for leading a lap. So we came away with 23 points. A fantastic haul there for Colin Turkington. Jake Hill finished in second place as well, with Tom Ingram finishing in third. Adam Morgan was fourth as well. And the good thing about with the touring cars is as well, it's more the road-going cars you see. So we've got BMW 330Es as well. We've got Hyundais as well. Honda Civic Type Rs involved as well. And some really great racing. Jason Plato, a legend of the series as well, in his last season, finished 6th in the first race as well and had his best weekend of the season as well. Not to say that all the cars got away with it though, because in the first race, Aidan Moffat was punted off as well into the wall down at turn number 1 in a move that was very much akin to what we might see in NASCAR as well. A 3-into-1 pincer maneuver as well, with on the inside Jack Butel, who's a young development driver, touching the back of Josh Cook in the BTC Racing, sponsored by, comically enough, Rich Energy. Those of you who watch Formula One might remember that energy drinks company. They now sponsor British Touring Car team as well. And Josh Cook with nowhere to go, hit the side of Aidan Moffat, spun round, hit the back of the barrier as well. They couldn't lift the car away, so he got left there in the gravel trap at turn number 1. But Jade Edwards' car, Michael Crees and Tom Chilton, all of those cars overheating. Now, it has been over 30 degrees at Snetterton as well in terms of temperature, and that may sound cold to those of you in America, but it's 30 degrees Celsius, so it was roasting as well, and the car's not designed for this high temperature to race in as well, so they were overheating a lot as well. And at one point during the weekend, Aidan Moffat actually retired in race 2 with that same coolant issue, and it got propped up by a rake. Literally, the bonnet was open, or the hood was open, being held down as well with that rake just to get the coolant in. Now into race 2. Race 2 sees the starting grid being taken from the race 1 results. So Colin Turkington once again started on pole position and once again did a domination, back-to-back wins. It's very rare for that to happen in the touring cars as well. And Colin Turkington, his 500th Grand Prix weekend, taking that opportunity to do the double. He took the victory again, led every lap, got pole position as well, and won the race and the fastest lap. So again, another 23 bonus points added to him, moving him closer ahead of the championship as well. Jake Hill was second, Tom Ingram in third position. So exactly the same podium in race 1 and race 2. And race 2 was littered again. Moffitt was out of the race. Will Powell, Rick Parfitt, Gordon Shedden, Dexter Patterson, all of their cars retiring with overheating issues as well further down the field. And Rick Parfitt Jr., of course, is the son of Gary Parfitt as well, as he comes in, and Rick Parfitt Jr. as well coming in. You might also recognise Will Powell's name. It's not Will Power, don't get worried. On to round 21 then, and a post-race penalty has been enforced for Ricky Collard, who's the son of Rob Collard, a former driver in the touring cars. He did finish in third, but he's now actually dropped down to fourth. So this is an amended result from when I sent it to Joe. So that's only broken in the last hour. The stewards have been very busy in that as well. So Rick Collard has actually dropped down to fourth, but it was a reverse grid format. So basically what happens for that in race 3, if you wonder why Colin Turkington suddenly finished down the order in 6th position, race 3's grid order is randomly decided by the ITV Sports Studio. Literally, it's a lottery. They have a big lottery ball, and inside is positions 1 to 12. So those finishing in the top 12 from the previous race, which was Turkington, Hill, Ingram, Morgan, Jelly, Collard, Plato, Rowbottom, Sutton, Hand, Lloyd and Butcher, all them get entered into the pot, and then a celebrity driver puts his hand in, picks up the ball and says you're on pole position. In this one, the driver picked up position 9, which was Ash Sutton. So Sutton got put onto pole position. Race 3 was the best race of the day because Sutton actually got overtaken at the start of the race by the driver who started alongside him on the front row as well, of Dan Rowbottom. But Rowbottom then hit problems and dropped down the field. So Sutton regained the lead in some fantastic battling. Sutton took the victory. Jason Plato, who started in this race, his 650th entry, making him the most historical, most entries into a British touring car race. Historically as well, he's now the best entrant of all time in terms of the amount of championships had as well. So Plato started his 650th race and got second place. Tom Ingram finished in third again, so he's now been third in every single race. Great points for him to bring him back up into the championship as well. Colin Turkington finished in 6th on his 500th start as well, so he ends the weekend with 2 wins, 2 dominations as well, and loads of the points. And speaking of the points, coming into this one, Colin Turkington now leads with 3 races to go at Thruxton, Silverstone on the national circuit, and then back to Brands Hatch in the Grand Prix layout. Turkington leads on 282 points. Second in the title with a great weekend is Tom Ingram. He's now on 267. And Jake Hill, despite being second in 2 races as well, had a poor race 3. He got now 258 points, 1 clear of Ash Sutton on 257. It's very much a 4-way fight in the last 3 races coming up as well. 3 weekends left, about 9 races as well, and the touring cars look to go from strength to strength as well. And to round out as well, the next meeting is in 2 weeks' time at Thruxton, and it's going to be another classic because at Thruxton, it's the fastest circuit in Britain. Average speeds are over 110 miles an hour.
And Josh, we thank you for your time talking about the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. And you viewers, be sure to subscribe to Josh's channel as he does watch-alongs for the British Touring Car Championship over there. It's one of the premier touring car series in the world, and Colin Turkington is a legendary driver, and so is Jason Plato. So Josh, I know it's really late over there for you in the UK, so what's your grid one shining moment from this motorsports weekend?
It's been a bit of a weird weekend, hasn't it, actually? We've had quite little on, which is quite good for us. We get to focus on more stuff. I think my one shining moment I think would go to Formula E. I think it sort of has to, doesn't it? Stoffel Van Dorn finally proving that he is a competitive driver. He's now an FIA world champion in Formula E as well. I think he's going to go from strength to strength because now he's off to Dragon Penske next year, and they've had their worst season ever. But next year they get a DS powertrain, which is going to be equivalent, as I said earlier on, to Joe as well, who's working the cameras today. Hi, Joe. I said earlier on in the show to him, it's the equivalent of transferring from a Minardi to a Ferrari. So it's going to be fantastic next season for Dragon. I think Mr. Consistency was Stoffel Van Dorn this year. Only one win and took the title. It was unbelievable. A fantastic race. And I know, guys, you've got NASCAR to talk about now. And I'm glad I was able to pop on and help you fill the show with something other than just the NASCAR wrap-up show as well. And I know there's a lot more coming out. Next weekend should be even better, though. We got MotoGP back.
Well, thank you, Josh. We'll see you next time. And next, getting on to NASCAR stuff. Today at Richmond, we only had 3 cautious for incidents on the track, 5 total, including the stage breaks. We saw cars with the setup for the long runs make it to the front on the day of comers and goers. After going 65 races without a win, Kevin Harvick broke that winless streak last weekend at Michigan and got the job done again today by winning the Federated Auto Parts 400. 2 in a row, and now he's looking like the Harvick of old. The closer is back, and Stewart-Haas Racing is back to its winning ways. With the number 4 team having momentum on their side, do you see this continuing on into the playoffs?
I do, Kobe, and I think it's obviously been a long time coming for that 4 team. It's kind of been shocking how long of a winless streak Kevin Harvick was on, and now he's back-to-back race winner in the Cup Series, and looks like the Kevin Harvick of old. I'm not sure that I'm ready to go so far as to say that he's a championship 4 favorite. I've seen some of that on social media. Harvick's gone from he's not even going to make the playoffs to he might win the whole thing. I need to see more than just back-to-back weekends of strong runs and consistency from this 4 team as we start the playoffs as well before I go that far and consider putting him in my mock championship 4. But we know Kevin Harvick, we know Stewart-Haas Racing, we know that they definitely have a team and the personnel to get the job done. It's just a matter of peaking at the right time. And it certainly looks like that 4 team is doing just that. You can't do much better than winning 2 races in a row. And we just got word a couple minutes ago that they've cleared text. The win is official. We don't have to worry about that. And neither do we, like we had to at Pocono several weeks ago with the Gibbs cars. But, I think Harvick and his team certainly deserve to celebrate. It's been a great, tremendous 2 weekends for them. And we'll see if they can keep this momentum going. But you certainly, it's best to be peaking at this time and sending a message to the field that they might be a force to be reckoned with when we begin the playoffs.
Yesterday during the pre-show, we said Kevin Harvick wouldn't win. Well, he made us eat crow. To me, Happy Harvick of old, like you said, Ben, his return. I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Harvick wins a few more races before we get to the championship 4 in Phoenix. Today, Kevin Harvick proved that that kid from Bakersfield, California can still do it. And him and Stewart-Haas Racing, his crew chief Rodney Childers, they're on a high right now. So watch out. Kevin Harvick, the closer, he is back to his winning ways. I wouldn't be surprised if Harvick wins a few more races before the end of the season.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise to see Kevin Harvick win several more races before the 2022 season ends, especially with the hot streak he's on right now. I wish I could have brought a bowl with me from in the kitchen, so I'll be ready to eat my crow here live on the air, because Kevin Harvick made us look really silly after yesterday. All of us said that there's no chance that Kevin Harvick's going to win back-to-back races, and look what happened. 1 Michigan, 1 Richmond, and it's certainly a great time to be Kevin Harvick right now. Stewart-Haas Racing, they've been looking to get back into the winner's circle on a more regular basis, and now it looks like they've really found something with this car. Harvick's running extremely well. Eric Almirola was running some fast lap times today. Chase Briscoe was also running well until he had a fire in the car, which really ended up ruining his day. Cole Custer had some speed early and then fell back through the field. But overall, if I'm Gene Haas, Tony Stewart, I'm really happy with the way my program is going right now. And Kevin Harvick, Rodney Childers, they're looking like the dynamic duo that they've always been. And I really think that the rest of the field is really put on notice now because Harvick, Childers, watch out. They very well could keep this hot streak going and carry this momentum into the playoffs and possibly make a deep playoff run. And like Ben was saying, we still need to see a little bit more before we can pencil them in as a possible championship 4 contender. But if they keep this up, who knows what could happen. And with Harvick's win and 2 races remaining, the maximum number of winners after the regular season finale at Daytona International Speedway could be 17. And the next race is at the road course and at Watkins Glen in upstate New York. The early favorites are obviously going to be Chase Elliott, the NASCAR Dub road course king, Tyler Reddick, who's won at 2 road courses this year at Road America and the IMS road course, and Kyle Larson. Drivers already locked into the playoffs with a previous win. There's dark horses like Michael McDowell looming around, running extremely well on the previous road course races. Chris Buescher might be in contention as well, who finished 3rd today at Richmond. Ben, how much of a relief is it for the playoff drivers towards the bottom of the list of winners with 1 win that Buescher didn't go to victory lane today?
Well, it might be a relief in the moment that Buescher didn't go to victory lane, but to be honest, I don't know that it's much of a relief at all. Generally speaking, I think this was probably the race where you were least likely to get a new winner, and it still nearly happened with Chris Buescher. So I think, when you look at the dynamics of the road course and drivers who have historically run well on road courses that are still looking to win this year. I mean, heck, it was just a few years ago, the final couple of years at Furniture Row, Martin Truex Jr. was winning road course races left and right. And, he's obviously on the playoff bubble right there with Ryan Blaney, drivers that have had tremendous seasons but are still missing that win. And because of the parity we've seen this season, one of them's going to get in, one of them's not going to make it. So it's certainly a relief that the 17 didn't go to victory lane and make it happen today. But you look at the wild card that a road course race can be, and then obviously everybody knows, crazy things can happen at Daytona. We've got a couple of really good super speedway racers in Bubba Wallace and Brad Keselowski who have turned things up these last couple of weekends as well, just generally speaking with their own programs, and then put that together with their super speedway skill. They could easily win Daytona and punch their ticket right then and there, and that could be your 16th winner as well. So, to answer the question, relief today, for sure. Relief, generally speaking. Ryan Blaney's still not going to sleep at all the next 2 weeks unless he is the 16th different winner. Then I guess he can sleep a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the great super speedway racers who still haven't won. Another great super speedway racer, the guy who finished 3rd, Chris Buescher, he could very well go out there and he win at Daytona. He could win next week at Watkins Glen too, because remember his run at Sonoma, he was running extremely well. Could have possibly won that race. So I think if you're Chris Buescher, although you didn't get the win today, you have to feel really good about your chances next week at the Glen and then Daytona the following week. And looking at the playoff standings right now, I know Kurt Busch missed his 4th consecutive race. And if there's a new winner next weekend at Watkins Glen, Kurt Busch would be on the bubble down in 16th. And then Daytona, the final race, anything can happen. Kurt Busch, if he's able to return, certainly would have to be nervous. But I think right now, the main thing is Kurt Busch getting 100% healthy and then playoffs second. But I think if you're Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric, obviously, I think those guys are going to be perfectly fine. Nothing to worry about. And besides Kurt Busch, your Blaney, Truex, everybody else, oh boy, these next 2 weeks are going to be extremely stressful. And now one driver is still on the bubble. You just mentioned Ryan Blaney, still holding that final playoff spot. He used stage points today to maintain a healthy margin over Martin Truex Jr. But there was a moment when we saw him push Kyle Busch out of the way, given the bump and run, and Blaney was very aggressive. Adam, could Ryan Blaney be at risk of making enemies at the wrong time of the year? And do you feel a growing sense of urgency from the number 12 team?
Colby, if I'm Ryan Blaney going forward, I wouldn't want to make any enemies. He's currently 16th in the playoff standings. And in order for him, and to me, Ryan Blaney going forward needs, especially Watkins Glen and Daytona, needs to race clean, race smart, and just run at your own pace. If Ryan Blaney wants, he's going to have to go out there and just run his own race. And he doesn't want to make any enemies this time of the year. Why? Because these drivers could remember what Ryan Blaney did to them, and in the playoffs, what 2 tracks are there? Bristol and then Martinsville, the last race before the championship 4. Ryan Blaney need to run clean, smart, and not make any more enemies on track.
And speaking of making enemies, going back to that Kyle Busch incident when Ryan Blaney pushed him out of the way after the race, Kyle Busch actually seemed more upset with Ross Chastain. I know, total shocker, right? More upset with the Watermelon Man than what Ryan Blaney said. Kyle Busch basically said, "I got Ross Chastained today." And, Ross is really making a lot of enemies. His list seems to be growing weekly. I know he has Kyle Busch on his backside, but as for Blaney, I don't think he's in any serious trouble right now of making any significant enemies. I think he's just trying to push as hard as he can. As I mentioned, had a really good day scoring stage points. I think he should certainly focus on trying to get some important stage points next week at Watkins Glen to continue to build that margin over Martin Truex Jr. and then the season finale at Daytona. I believe he can go out there and win that race because Blaney is a really good super speedway racer. So I believe if we don't get a new winner next weekend at Watkins Glen, Blaney could very well become the 16th different winner. So we'll have 16 winners in this year's playoffs. And everyone's been vocal about the overall lack of action recently at Richmond, especially after the spring race. This time saw a few cautions, lone green flag runs, but a lot of people saw a better on-track product compared to the last race here. NASCAR was looking at making changes to the short track package, but that hasn't happened yet. And thinking ahead to Bristol, Martinsville, and the flat track, the championship race at Phoenix Raceway, do you believe NASCAR needs to make adjustments ahead of those playoff races, or are the teams just improving as they learn a new car? Should NASCAR just be hands-off?
Well, I've never been a fan in principle of making wide sweeping changes in the middle of a season. Then again, this is NASCAR. We have seen that before. We've seen a driver added to the chase because of something that happened in the last race before the chase began. So I assume nothing's off limits if that's the precedent that's been set. But in terms of a rules package for a short track or a track like Phoenix, which I guess you could draw some similarities to what we saw today at Richmond. I know the racing could have been a little bit more exciting. You did have a strategy aspect come in as well that I think saved it from being a total snooze fest or anything like that. But I think when it comes to the short track package for 2022, NASCAR kind of has what they've got. I don't know if they can make any changes that are going to make that much of a difference this late in the season. And you also don't want to risk going in the opposite direction and making things even worse. So I would say let's get through this season. Let's go back to the R&D center in the off season. Maybe start making some plans now. Maybe start pooling some ideas together and see what we can do to improve the racing on the short tracks and better of a show and entertainment for the fans. But I think in terms of this particular season, we should probably just ride it out and hope for the best when we get down, particularly to the championship race at Phoenix.
Yeah, Ben, I agree with you. To me, they have been improving, with this new car, throughout the season. And, today at Richmond, we saw some passing on the top side. It was nice to see. We even saw some 3-wide and 4-wide racing. So, I think the teams have been improving on this next gen car throughout the season. And I'll agree with you, Ben. I think after the season, what NASCAR should do is go to the R&D center and take a look, at the zero package and see how they can improve it for next year.
Yeah, Ben, you brought up an excellent point about the risk NASCAR would be taking this late in the game to make changes to the package. Yeah, you certainly want to try to always make the on-track product as compelling as you possibly can, but you brought up the point. You also run the risk of making things much worse. I know with this current short track package with the new next gen car, it can be quite difficult to pass, especially on the longer runs. But if you make some changes later on, and it gets worse, you might see even less passing going on, and you're going to hear plowing tight on the radio, can't pass. All of that is just going to be really, really frustrating. And I'm sure NASCAR's been looking at some ideas how to improve it for next year. And I know they've already listed some potential things that could happen, and hopefully they'll be able to look at that, as you guys have said, at the R&D center, and see how they can make it much better for 2023. And Joey Logano, he ended up leading over 200 laps today, but the car fell off during the final run. Chris Buescher almost played spoiler with a strong third place finish. And going back to the strategical aspect that you mentioned, Ben, that was really cool to see what Christopher Bell did at their end on the alternative strategy when he was running down Kevin Harvick on much fresher tires there at the end. Too bad it was just a 400 lap race. If it was a 401 lap race, we'd probably be talking about a Christopher Bell victory, because he was coming just one more lap. I believe it certainly would have been a different outcome, because Bell, he was absolutely hauling the mail. And going back to Harvick, getting another win for Ford. We had a total of 5 Fords in the top 10. Now that we're going to be heading to tracks for a second time this year, will Ford be more competitive and get more wins? And it's crazy, because right before Harvick won at Michigan, one of the Ford executives said our performance this year has been unacceptable that we haven't won more races, and now 2 wins on the road for the Blue Oval.
Yeah, maybe that was the motivation they needed, because it's not just Kevin Harvick. I think, a lot of the Fords look very, very strong right now. We've seen, Team Penske's Joey Logano, RFK's Chris Buescher almost playing ultimate spoiler today. Brad Keselowski showed some speed this weekend as well in that other RFK car. So I think the Ford teams have really turned a corner, particularly Kevin Harvick, obviously. But I think even beyond just Stewart-Haas Racing and looking down the running order, I mean, Eric Almirola, I think, started 30th today, worked his way up to the top 5 at some point. You see him on the screen right there. He came up with a top 10. So it's not even just Harvick within SHR. And, I think all the 4 teams have really stepped it up these last couple of weeks. And, like I said, talking about Kevin Harvick, you want to peak at the right time. It certainly looks like Ford, I know they had a lot of room for improvement, so they had some room to start peaking and improving there. But I think, we're going to continue to see that. It's obviously, like you said, Kobe, we are coming to some tracks for the second time. There's some data. Obviously, the Chevy and Toyota teams have that as well. So Ford is going to have to compete with that. But they certainly look strong right now. And I have no reason to doubt that they're going to be able to continue improving as the weeks go on. And it's the perfect time to do it, because we're getting into the playoffs here.
Yeah, for sure, Ben. It's certainly the right time for Ford to be rising to the occasion like this. As you mentioned with the data, I'm sure Ford's going to be looking at that and see what they can do to improve the second time around. It certainly seems like Ford was able to do that at Richmond Raceway in the second race at the Virginia Short Track this year. And as I previously said, Watkins Glen is next on the schedule. 2007 F1 World Champion Kimi Räikkönen is making his highly anticipated NASCAR Cup Series debut with Trackhouse. This story is expected to bring a lot of international attention. It's a part of a busy weekend for the grid ranking. This weekend we only had NASCAR and Formula E, and linked to our Formula E coverage from the Soul E Prix this weekend in the video description below. Now, Ben, what can you tell us about the grid ranking?
Yeah, well, let's rewind a little bit. Let's bring Formula E back into the discussion here as we get into the updated grid ranking. The first of the 8 series in the grid ranking to wrap up their season, that's Formula E, and you see the top 10 on your screen right now. The ABB Formula E Series crowned Stoffel Van Dorn, the ex-McLaren F1 driver, their newest champion of the world. Van Dorn is currently in the top 10. You see him right there in 8th. We'll see if his score is good enough to be the 4th Formula E driver to finish in the top 10 of the grid ranking. Formula E's highest ever finisher is Antonio Felix da Costa with a 16.32. That was good enough for 4th in 2020. Lucas Degrassi finished 7th in the grid ranking in 2017, as did John-Eric Verne in 2018. 2019 and 2021 had no Formula E driver finish even in the top 20. And of course, we remember talking last year how much parity there was with the Wheel of Destiny seemingly in Formula E. But Van Doren's total of 13.20 would be the lowest score for a Formula E driver to finish in the top 10 if Van Doren can, in fact, stay there. Now, Kobe, Stoffel Van Dorn is the first Formula E champion to win only one race. That, of course, was the Monaco E-Prix earlier this year. Are you surprised consistency prevailed in Formula E despite two drivers scoring 4 wins each?
I mean, at least Stoffel Van Dorn won the most important Formula E race on the calendar. When in Monaco, no matter what series you're in, whether it's the F1 Monaco Grand Prix or the Monaco E-Prix, is always special. Winning on the streets of Monte Carlo, and yeah, it was really surprising to see that consistency was really key in this year's championship. I know some people have been arguing that they thought Mitch Evans would be a really good champion, considering the fact that he's won 4 races this year compared to Van Dorn's one. But looking at Van Dorn's season, it's been remarkably impressive how consistent he's been. And the worst finish for Stoffel Van Dorn's championship season was 11th in the Mexico City E-Prix. When you look at Mitch Evans, he had a poor finish in the second race in Saudi Arabia, got 19th in Mexico City. Then he had 11th during the first race in New York City, and he also retired during the second race in London. So for Stoffel Van Dorn, for the most part, he escaped bad luck, while Mitch Evans ran into that several times. And I think that was really the difference maker in this championship, that Stoffel Van Dorn, for some reason or not, didn't really have any bad luck this season. And when Mitch Evans was having a bad day, Van Dorn still had a really good day. And kudos to Stoffel for winning this year's Formula E World Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to Stoffel Van Dorn, somebody who a lot of people, I think, believe should still be in Formula One, but great to see him having success outside of F1 here in Formula E. Now, as we take a look at the full grid ranking, Shane Van Gisbergen has a 21.57. Only 2 drivers have won the grid ranking with a score in the 20-point range. Those were Lewis Hamilton with a 20.25 in 2020. Marc Marquez also eclipsed that mark with his second grid ranking world championship in 2019. Just barely, though, with a 20.01. Now, Jamie Chadwick's dominant W Series season has allowed her to move up as other Series C drivers' consistency levels fall. Based on last year's standings, with the score she has right now, Chadwick would only place 8th, but right now in 2022, it's good enough for P4. The lowest score in last year's top 10 was a 14.13. Only 7 drivers currently have a score higher than that. The lower scores indicate increased competition, but consistent drivers like Will Power, Fabio Quartararo, and Scott Dixon are right behind the 4 dominant drivers of SVG, Kalle Rovanperä, Max Verstappen, and Chadwick. So I'll pose this question to both you and Adam Kobe. With this increased parity, do you believe any other driver will join Van Dorn in winning the championship in their respective series without winning the most races?
Well, when you look at all the series in the grid ranking, I think you have to take a look at the NTT IndyCar series. And while the championship there is extremely close right now, and any one of the drivers in the top 5 can still take home the IndyCar championship, you have to look at the current points leader. Will Power, he currently has a single win and leading the points with just 3 races ago. Got Gateway coming up, then the Grand Prix of Portland, and then the season finale at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. And especially to start off the season, Will Power's consistency was super impressive, with a 3rd place finish on the Firestone Grand Prix in St. Pete. Then he had finished 4th at Texas, 4th at Long Beach, 4th at Barber, third on the IMS road course, and then he finished 15th in the Indy 500. And his only win of the season was in the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle. Ran into some trouble at Road America, Toronto, but he had some consistency still going at Mid-Ohio, both Iowa races, the second race on the IMS road course, and then 11th place the last time out at Nashville. So I think if Will Power can keep that consistency going and not have any more of those outlier finishes like we've seen at Road America, Toronto, Indy 500, Nashville, I certainly believe that Will Power could become the IndyCar champion with just 1 win.
Well, Will Power only has 1 win and is the points leader. You mentioned, Kobe, the next 3 races. I could see Will Power getting another win, and it actually has happened in MotoGP 2020. Johan Mir was consistent, won the championship, and he only had 1 win. But let's take a look at MotoGP. And the person who's second is Aleix Espargaro. He could go. To me, I don't see it happening. But stranger things have happened. Will Power could easily win the NTT IndyCar Series Championship with just one win if he scores really well at the next 3 races.
Well, of course, we know what happened in the Truck Series a few years ago. Matt Crafton didn't win any races and still won the championship there. It's unlikely that's going to happen this season because at most we're only going to have one driver make the playoffs without having a single win. Although now that I think about it, the way Ryan Blaney's looked this season, if he can squeak into the playoffs, the consistency that he's shown, we may or may not see him, fight for the championship through that consistency. But of course, we've still yet to see the Cup champion win the championship in this format without winning the last race. So it's unlikely that it happens like that, but we could still see a driver win the championship very easily without having the most wins given the chaotic playoff system that we see in NASCAR. I wouldn't rule it out of IndyCar either, though. Like you said, Adam, Will Power only having one win so far. The consistency that he's shown, he could easily win the championship as well. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Now it's time for our grid one shining moment from this motorsports weekend. So I'll start with you, Kobe. What's your grid one shining moment?
Well, my great one shining moment is actually one of the things that was highlighted by NBC Sports. Thought it was one of the most powerful, best segments they've done. I'm going to go with Colby Garrison, who's been blind her entire life. She got to ride along with Jeff Burton in the NBC car and take some laps around Richmond Raceway, and I was very impressed with her being able, to tell what the car was doing and all of that, and just her first time sitting behind a race car, and since unfortunately she cannot see, she uses her other senses, or one of her other 5 senses, to be able to enjoy motorsports through the sounds of the cars roaring by, through the smell of burnt rubber. I thought it was just such an incredible story, and also she's from my neck of the woods. They say she's from Greensboro, North Carolina, and that's literally just like a 15 to 20 minute drive down the highway from where I live. So it's really cool to see a local person being spotlighted, and it's just so incredible. I really, really, really enjoyed that story. So Colby Garrison's my one shining moment for this week.
That is a fantastic story, Kobe. I completely agree with you. In terms of my one shining moment, I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick. I think I might have gone with Harvick last weekend as well, but it's been great to see Kevin have this little run of success here in a time where he was on a winless streak. People were starting to wonder if his winning days were behind him. We didn't see Jimmy Johnson win the last few years of his Cup Series career. People might have wondered if we'd already seen Kevin Harvick's last win, if that playoff collapse in 2020 might have been a turning point for his career. Well, he has silenced all those doubters, and I think it's very important for us to appreciate what we're seeing from him right now, because Father Time is ultimately undefeated. Kevin Harvick will eventually retire one day. Nothing lasts forever, but he is one of the great champions of our sport. And with 60 Cup Series wins now, he will certainly be a first ballot Hall of Famer when that day comes. But to see Kevin back in victory lane and back running competitive again, like I said, enjoy it while we can. He's a legend of the NASCAR Cup Series, and he might just add another championship to his resume this season as well.
And that story about that young lady who's blind from Greensboro. I have a friend who I went to school with in New Hampshire, and he's blind, and he plays in an independent rock band out in San Diego, California, where he lives. So that was a pretty cool story. But for me, I'm going with the driver in a series that our colleague Joshua talked about earlier on, and that's Colin Turkington from the British Touring Car Championship. He celebrated his 500th career start today, and he's a 4-time series champion. He's a legend in that series over there in England, and he had a really strong day at Snetterton over there in England. And so, to me, Colin Turkington celebrating his 500th career start, getting 2 wins at Snetterton in England in the British Touring Car Championship today is my one shining moment.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're out of time for tonight. So, want to remind all of our viewers to please like and subscribe to GRIDnet. We're here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We encourage you to take 5 minutes after our show and consider joining our Patreon, invest in GRIDnet to keep us on the air well into the future. Click the link in the video description to buy me a coffee, and you can buy a drink for your favorite honor talent here at GRIDnet. Big thank you to Edward Hunter from formerly E-Zone, Amber and Zachary for buying us a coffee. We really appreciate it. Any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet. Visit public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link below and referral code GRIDnet gives you $5 to invest. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to properly invest in the stock market. And tomorrow, Monday night, check out Grid Live Encore for a full recap of the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race at Richmond. And Wednesday, Adam and I host another edition of Grid Tonight with the latest news in motorsports. For Ben Snyder, Joshua Birch was here earlier, and Adam Lemmerys, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDNET for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.